For over 1,000 years, Western civilization has been stuck in a dark age of sexual repression and misinformation. We get an oversexed overload from the media, but nothing in the way of honest, helpful, practical information on sex and how to do it right. That sucks, and I'm fucking sick of it. My name's JV Altheras, and I've spent a couple decades learning everything I can about how to have amazing sex and more of it. Not in a classroom like a lot of people who talk about sex. I learned it all in the gutter, right where Mom told me I'd end up. It's my mission to bring an end to the sexual dark age with brutally honest talk and education on all aspects of sex and sexuality, in an atmosphere that will keep you entertained without treating you like an idiot. Shara and I are not doctors. Certifiable, perhaps, but not certified in any way. And that means we don't have to talk about vaginas and penises to maintain academic credibility. You got a problem with a vagina? Call a gynecologist. You want to learn more about pussies and cocks and how to make them happy? You've come to the right place. Ending the Sexual Dark Age is now sponsored by the internet's most trusted name in adult toys. A happy pussy likes to play more often. AdamandEve.com is offering you guys half off on your choice of thousands upon thousands of vibrators and dildos and cock rings and strap-ons, nipple clamps, porn DVDs, butt plugs, pocket pussies, anything else you can imagine to either get yourself off or have some fun with your playmate. As always, we highly recommend making sex toys part of your sex life, and right now, AdamandEve.com is only asking for one chance to impress you. They're offering an awesome deal in support of ending the sexual dark age, and the whole thing goes a little like this. By typing Dark Age, all one word, for the offer code at checkout, you will get 50% off the most expensive item in your cart, with a few exceptions, free shipping, 3 free porn DVDs, and a sexy free mystery gift. Free DVDs are selected randomly and added to your order before they ship. AdamandEve.com is willing to damn near pay you to get off. So stop by, enter DARKAGE at checkout, and proceed to collect on an awesome deal. Or just follow one of the links on sexualdarkage.com. Welcome to episode 38. This time we'll be covering some listener questions on vaginism, a happily married woman's struggle with monogamy, and a couple people in the audience who are struggling with bicuriosity. Our first question is from a French lady struggling with a condition called vaginismus or vaginism. Since you might never have heard of this, I'll provide a little info before going into her email. Vaginism is a condition that affects the pelvic floor muscle, also known as the pubococcygeus muscle, also known as the love muscle that you work on with Kegel exercises. Vaginism is a muscle spasm that basically makes the pelvic floor muscle clamp down, causing a great deal of pain when you stick anything inside the pussy. It's like a tight pussy gone haywire. It's usually a result of a combination of physical and psychological causes, and can also happen totally spontaneously. If you've ever heard a story about a couple that's fucking and ends up in the emergency room to get separated because the guy was physically unable to pull out, and this does happen, vaginism caused that problem. The condition also results in a great deal of stress for any woman afflicted by it, because in most cases it makes sex so painful that penetration is just off the table. So that's a little backstory, and here's the email from Lady M from France. I listened to your podcast and thought I could tell you my problem to see if you can help me. I'm 25, and since the beginning of my sex life, I've had vaginism. At first, I didn't know what it was, and I tried with a few guys to have sex, and it was never possible. It caused me a lot of stress. Then I went to see a sex therapist and discovered what I had, and I've been working on that problem using dilators. I've progressed, and now I can use them all, though still with some discomfort on the biggest one. But the problem is I never did talk with a guy about it, and I'm feeling ashamed and not normal, so to speak. This is why every time I go out with a guy, I'm stressed, and when sex arrives, which is usually pretty quickly nowadays, I panic. I think this is partly due to a bad sex experience I had as a little girl with my nursemaid's son. For example, I recently met a guy at a friend's wedding. We lived far away from each other, so then I went to meet him for a camping weekend along with his friends and slept in his tent. Before going there, I was stressed, but I didn't want to lose the opportunity because of my problem. I convinced myself that we were not going to have sex the first day because we didn't know each other. When I went to bed, he followed me and we started kissing and cuddling without talking. I started asking myself where he wanted to go and what he wanted exactly, and I really panicked. So I told him I had not been with a guy for a long time and that I was not at ease and I wanted to go slow and take time. He responded that we had time and that he was okay with it. Then he didn't call for 10 days and I had put him out of my mind when he texted me something like, "How's it going?" Then he told me he's coming near where I am with some of his friends and that he'd like to call me so we could see each other. The problem is that it is really difficult for me to talk to a guy about my problem, but I know that this is the key to move on. How can I explain my problem, and when can I approach the subject in a relationship? Hoping that you can help me. Thank you in advance for taking the time to read this. Since vaginism is an often unidentified or misunderstood problem, Before I get to the issue of talking about it with potential lovers, I want to share what our medical advisor had to say on the condition and the standard treatments used in the U.S. The medical advisor says, any woman with vaginismus needs a really thorough woman's health exam by a sympathetic examiner. The syndrome is not a quick fix or a home fix. I would suggest an experienced women's health nurse practitioner is a good choice if she is not already established with a gynecologist. What they will do is start with an extensive history, asking all those embarrassing and detailed questions about her sexual history, including past intravaginal injury, past abuse, individual and partnered sexual activity, past satisfactory intercourse, has she been pregnant, delivered a child, are toys tolerable, fingers, exact reactions to insertion of cock, well, they'll say penis. The next step will be a very thorough vaginal exam. Sometimes this will trigger spasms. My colleague will frequently let the woman do a self-insertion of the speculum by herself and sometimes even have her take it home to get used to the feeling. Then finally, the practitioner will develop a plan with the patient to maximize her opportunity for success. Some elements of the plan will include dilators, which are medical dildos, and insertable toys including Benoit balls are suggested. When she's ready to have her partner participate and help with insertion, it will help acclimate her to the feeling of another hand in and on her pussy. He has to be included in any therapy so he understands the syndrome. Whining, horny, I want some guys need to demote their dicks. No woman is ever doing this to make a man miserable. The emotional component is very important. What are the triggers to her spasms? What is the deep source? Of course, once it happens, the fear level of repeats can be ever increasing and disheartening, with repeat being much more likely. Anti-anxiety medication like prescribed Valium an hour before sex, professional hypnosis with the same caveats mentioned in episode 37, and meditation with self-hypnosis can also be of assistance. When ready to move on to the next step with the partner involved, a prescribed lube with an anesthetic may be helpful to let him slide in painlessly, but she will not feel much. If the goal is to get her familiar with him being inside and not having spasms or pain, this may be a vital part of therapy. If she wants to have an orgasm, the numbing lube won't cut it. Obviously, the guy will need a condom or his dick will go numb and floppy, rendering this plan embarrassingly useless. The bottom line is that this condition is deep-seated physiologically and psychologically, requiring patient, caring, and professional physical and psychological assistance. Despite the embarrassment of disclosure, any experienced women's health provider has heard some or all of it before. In fact, some may have been there too themselves. It's considered unprofessional to share that level of information with a patient, though. Be assured they will not judge the victim of the problem or the cause. A nice all-around layperson's information source can be found on Wikipedia, and I will be including a link to the Wikipedia page in the show notes. Note, the medical advisor cannot and does not advocate for the use of recreational drugs of any type for any reason. So, Lady M, on the issue of talking about this problem with potential playmates, the stress and doubt you're feeling is something that anyone with a significant sexual disorder is going to experience and have to learn how to deal with. It's not easy. From what you wrote, the stress is short-circuiting your romantic relationships before you even have a chance to get them going. And meanwhile, you're just trying to figure out how to enjoy sex for once in your life. As far as camping trip guy, I wouldn't spend much time stressing about what happened that weekend. As a single guy sharing a tent with a single woman that he was attracted to, he might not have been certain he was getting laid, but he was certain he was going to try. Don't attach too much meaning to the fact that he didn't call for 10 days, because in the end, he did call and he wanted to see you again. Discussing sexual issues with someone you're attracted to is easily twice as hard as it should be, since the sexual dark age teaches us that we're supposed to feel dirty for talking about sex at all. So you ought to feel especially dirty and ashamed talking about sexual problems. The brutal truth is, there are definitely guys out there who won't want to get involved with a woman that's got a medical condition preventing penetration. Don't obsess about that. There are also plenty of guys who can be very open-minded and supportive, and by default, you're looking for one of those. You've got to get comfortable in your own skin. You've got a disorder that's manageable and not a permanently debilitating condition, and it doesn't define you as a person or a lover. You've got to feel like this is hanging over your head from the moment you meet a new guy, but in reality, it doesn't become an issue until you decide that you want to fuck him. Also, even though penetration tends to be the cornerstone of heterosexual play, it's not the end-all be-all of sex, especially if you've really got a connection with someone. In order to talk about your condition comfortably, you just need to start thinking about it with less doom and gloom. Saying that you want to take things slow could mean anything, and a guy is going to imagine the least convenient reason if you don't explain why, up to and including thinking you're just not really into him, and that's going to start to affect his attraction level towards you. Instead, try saying that you only like oral play unless you're in a relationship. That's a precisely crafted Jedi mind trick for a guy. He hears a reference to getting blowjobs, he's on board. It's also a subtle way to imply that you expect him to eat at the Y. At the same time, you get him to mentally push the pause button on the thought of fucking because nobody wants to jump right into a relationship. It's a way to say that you're not a prude, but penetration isn't on the table right away. And this isn't to deceive anybody, it's just a way for you to develop a comfort zone when you're getting to know a guy without having to go into the whole explanation of you got vaginism and this is what it is, and it would have to include a technical explanation for most guys to get their heads around it. I mean, that's got to be kind of uncomfortable, like a doctor's office kind of a conversation to have anyway. So dealing with the issue by not hitting it absolutely head on, not going into too much detail, will buy you some time to figure out if the guy is worth keeping around before you have to have that conversation. Any guy who heads for the door at that point is just looking for some quick fun. And in your position, you can't get rid of those guys fast enough. Even if it was something you're looking for, casual sex isn't practical when you're trying to work through vaginism. It doesn't take a guy who's in it for the long haul, but it at least takes a guy with some patience who's looking for more than a quick fling. And I can tell you from experience that helping a woman work through a sexual issue and have great sex when she couldn't have great sex before, that's a satisfaction for a guy that is above and beyond normal sex. If you're feeling frisky early on, you could say that you're working through a physical condition that can make sex painful, and you're looking for someone patient to help you work through it. If any given guy does get turned off, don't beat yourself up over it. You should be happy that you avoided wasting time with him and just be all, next. It's all about framing the issue in a way that takes the stress off of you, since stress is a contributing factor to the vaginism in the first place. Having a patient, willing playmate to help you work through this will reduce the stress factor all on its own, because it will take a lot of that pressure off. If you can get yourself to the point where you can be a little bit intimate with a guy, and you've got that cushion zone where you can be intimate with him and be a little physical with him without him expecting penetration, then that pressure is gone. For a couple more quick random thoughts on the topic, since you say that you're okay with the smaller toys you've been playing with, you might be one of the many women who's perfectly happy to have a guy with a smaller than average cock. And instituting an oral only unless you're in a relationship type policy will give you a chance to get familiar with a guy's cock long before you ever try sticking it in your pussy. That'll also give you an opportunity to try some toys that are about the same size as your guy. If you want to explain your condition quickly without sounding all medical or intimidating, try telling him your pussy's too tight. I promise, the average guy is going to be intrigued by a statement like that. And lastly, I'd suggest exploring anal masturbation to see if anal sex is something you can put on the table. To be clear, I'm not suggesting that you do it to satisfy a guy if you don't enjoy it. But give anal an honest chance to see if it works for you in a solo situation, and maybe it's something you can include into a relationship with a guy. Then you can be all, I've got 3 holes and 2 work just fine, instead of focusing on the one hole that you're trying to get in working order. The biggest thing to remember is that you've got nothing to be ashamed of, and a guy who's really into you will be willing to be a little patient for a crack at your pussy once you get more comfortable with your condition. Next up, Smooch writes, I just turned 41. I've been with my husband for 14 years and I'm struggling with staying faithful. I don't want to lose my husband and family. I don't want a divorce. I just want permission to have experiences with other people. Not just men, but with women too. I've had very little experience with women, but I so strongly desire to be with a lesbian. I really want to know what it would be like to be ravished by a woman who loves to be with other women. I love men and I could never live my life without them or their cocks. I am finding that monogamy makes me feel trapped and suffocated. I thought that when I met Mr. Right, all desires for others would simply fade away. I loved and had lots of sexual experiences when I was a younger woman and I enjoyed them all. My husband and I have fantastic sex, but that is not satisfying my craving for the touch and attention from other men and women. My husband was cheated on by his first wife and cannot see an open relationship as an honest and fun experience for us both. He only sees it as cheating. He's 51 and I don't hold much hope in him working through his insecurities. He's comfortable with monogamy, me, our life, and does not want to change. He's open for new sexual experiences between us, but always says he can't imagine me with another man or woman. He's willing to go to a strip bar and buy me a lap dance in order to see what he is or isn't comfortable with. Maybe I would like this, but honestly, very pretty women are not the kind I'm attracted to. I like more butch women, and I have no fantasies about receiving a lap dance. I don't know where to go from here. I don't know how to evolve our relationship, and I don't know if I can go another 14 years denying myself any sexual experiences with other people as the opportunities may arise. Even just a kiss, I want to be open and able to honor what may come my way. I can't do that with a traditional, faithful, monogamy-loving husband. What do? We have 4 kids, 2 older and 2 very young still. It kills me to think I could or would ruin all of their lives if I acted on my desires without permission, but a little part of me dies every time that I'm reminded this is it. Any advice would be sincerely appreciated. Well, Smooch, the concept that we can suddenly become monogamous creatures as a result of falling in love is a very seductive sexual dark age fairy tale that's all too tempting. In the end, though, our sexual desires are what they are, and as you've found out, they don't just go away on their own. I give you a lot of credit for staying faithful for 14 years when you've obviously got really strong desires for some ethical non-monogamy. A cheating spouse is unethical non-monogamy. But it should be easy to see how being cheated on can give the wounded spouse a permanently negative view of non-monogamy in general. His position isn't unreasonable or even unpredictable considering his past, but try thinking of it in terms of him having the situation inflicted on him without warning or consent. The thing about cheating that tends to hit people the hardest isn't so much that their partner had sex with someone outside their relationship, but the underlying loss of trust that goes along with the infidelity. In one fell swoop, you find out that your relationship isn't what you thought it was, that you've been getting lied to, that you have no control over your relationship, and that for whatever period of time you were too blind to see any of it. It's a psychological assault on all kinds of levels. And there's also that horrible moment when you realize you need to be tested for STDs, and then you have to wait for the results. The thought of swinging or open relationships probably takes him right back to that place where he had no control over what was happening to his marriage and it was falling apart in front of his eyes. In short, he probably just can't see any upside to the proposition. You need to help him see something positive, but it's not likely to be a terribly easy trick. At the point you're at now, baby steps are the only way to proceed. The first baby step is getting him to realize that you're not trying to shred your marriage or leave him behind or, most importantly, force him into something he's not comfortable with or doesn't consent to. The downside is the way his first marriage ended will probably have him waiting for the other shoe to drop, and even if you can manage to get past that, it's likely to take you a while. In your quest to make him more comfortable with the concept, you need to help him understand that he's not going to end up in the same position he was in before with all of that associated mental anguish. Based on what you've said about your current situation, you've only got one opening to try leading your husband towards being more adventurous. So if you really want to move forward, you're going to need to try and make peace with his strip club idea and give it a shot. But I'm going to suggest expanding on his idea a little bit. I don't normally suggest that anyone ever do anything they're not totally comfortable with. In your case, though, this is the only road out of town, and it's only a stone's throw outside your comfort zone. I think that's a little poetic, actually, since you need to step a little outside your comfort zone to start expanding his, by meeting him in the middle, so to speak. You've got fantasies and desires that you've been exploring for a long time, but in order to realize any of those within your marriage, your husband is going to need some fantasies of his own. A casa de tatas is not a bad place to get that going. In order to enjoy yourself at a titty bar, you've got to be comfortable with the environment in general. Strip clubs are a natural place for a couple to take their first steps towards non-monogamy when the woman's bi-curious, since they're pretty much the only place you can find mostly naked women without buying them dinner first. The thing is, being at a titty bar for the first time can be a jarring experience depending on, a given person's personality. You didn't mention whether or not your husband's frequented strip clubs in the past, and plenty of guys haven't. But if you want to get him comfortable, it might take more than one visit. You'll have to be the judge of whether any of the following is a good idea in your husband's case, but I'm going to throw a few ideas out on how you can maximize your chances of turning some stripper time into something more open and more long-term. You need your husband to feel confident and empowered instead of emasculated and helpless when he's thinking about non-monogamy. Since you're likely to be ambivalent regarding the average topless dancer, tell him that he gets to decide who's going to dance for you. He'll probably toss that decision back in your direction or ask for your opinion or whatever, but the point is to make the offer in the first place. I'm not suggesting that you go out of your way to give up all control to him, but you should go out of your way to make sure that he feels some control and that he understands that he's not just giving you away. If you want to score bonus awesome wife points, encourage him to check out a few clubs with his friends so he can pick one that he likes to take you to. That'll give him the confidence of being in familiar territory when he's coming in the door with you. You actually want him looking at other women with sex on the brain, and hanging out in a titty bar with the boys should help in that department too. If he tells his buddies why he's scouting titty bars, they're going to encourage the hell out of him and make him feel like a hero. This will further your goal of getting him to think of non-monogamy in a positive light. The guild bylaws actually require us to encourage girl-on-girl action. When you get to your first trip to the club with him, just be relaxed and don't have any expectations. It's okay if you just have a few drinks the first time and come back another day for a lap dance. When you do get to that point, do a Woody check under the table after the lap dance, and you'll have a pretty good idea of how things are going. And make sure you reassure him that you want to experience new things, but you don't want to do anything that he's not comfortable with. Long term, it sounds like you would like to have something that's totally open where you can go off and play with a lesbian or go off and play with another guy. Short term, I would suggest not focusing on that. If you want to try to get him some kind of a comfort level, he needs to feel like he's included in whatever you're doing. And if you can get to the point where you can swing a little bit, where you can bring another woman in to play with the both of you, then you can take another look at where you're at and maybe try to work towards something totally open. But not pushing too hard and not pushing fast is your only chance of success here. Regardless of all of that, when you get home from the titty bar, anytime and every time you go there, you should make sure that the night finishes right by fucking his head off of his shoulders. As far as what to do long term, I think you've got to take these first few steps and then evaluate the situation again, and we are always here to help down the road. Next, we got a couple similar questions on bisexuality, and I'm going to read both of them before responding. First, we've got Pepper, who writes, I currently consider myself a bi-curious woman. I've always been interested in being with another woman, both romantically as well as sexually, but I've never had the chance. However, when I watch porn, I find I'm not attracted to any lesbian sex. I find the women themselves to be beautiful, but I just can't get off on the sex itself. In fact, I'm most turned on by gay porn, especially in a dom sub setting, which has nothing to do with women. My question is, can I still be bi-curious without liking lesbian sex, or is this a sign I'm probably straight? And next, open-minded brown guy writes, I'm a young Indian guy with a few experiences. I'm struggling with the question of whether I am bi. I'm definitely not gay as I love women. I haven't had too much experience, but I just love pleasuring a woman and making her come. However, I've had a few experiences with guys too, but in all my experiences, I've been pleasured by the guy. When I look back, I realize I'm not interested in giving another guy any pleasure, but love it when a guy rims me, fingers me, and blows me. I've probably had my best blowjob from a guy rather than a woman. With guys, I have fantasies of being submissive, of being fondled and made to come, but I don't feel like even touching another guy's dick and don't particularly find men attractive. Does this make me bi? I don't know if it's a submissive fantasy that makes me willing to play with a guy or if I have genuine attraction towards men. To both Pepper and open-minded brown guy, I think you guys might have a touch of label confusion. As we talked about back in episode 24, sexuality is a spectrum that's mostly made up of middle ground. The term bisexual can be a misleading label in itself because bi kind of implies half and half or right in the middle. It implies that to be bisexual, you must be equally attracted to men and women. I haven't met many people with dead equal attraction levels to both sexes. The term pansexual, which is being used more often these days, is more reflective of real life, and I like it as a term because it's more general. It doesn't immediately conjure any specific set of circumstances. At the end of the day, bisexuality is everything between straight and gay, and there's a whole lot of real estate there. The concept of bicuriosity revolves around the curiosity part. Satisfying curiosity starts the way all romantic exploration starts, with attraction, then light petting, then heavy petting, and more if it's feeling right. So Pepper, I think you're putting too much faith in porn as a way of gauging your attraction to women. Most of the lesbian porn out there is designed for and marketed to guys who fantasize about jumping in the middle. I'm happy to say that porn has evolved to include feminist porn, which is written and produced for a female audience and actually includes storylines and characters. Don't tell anyone. If you want to try some porn that's more likely to provoke a reaction from a bi-curious woman, check out some lesbian porn that's actually made for lesbians by Googling feminist porn and doing some surfing. To answer your question, it's absolutely possible to be bi-curious without being certain that you're interested in lesbian sex or in any particular act. If your gut tells you that you'd like to try being romantically involved with a woman, but you definitely like men, you're bi-curious. Whether or not that curiosity could or would develop into bisexuality is something only exploration can answer. You won't know whether it feels right until you're rolling around on the couch sucking face. And not reacting to mainstream lesbian porn doesn't mean much of anything. For open-minded brown guy's question, if you're looking to figure out if the bisexual label fits you, I feel pretty confident saying that it does, since you've had enjoyable play with both men and women. The fact that you don't feel a desire to play with another guy's cock is irrelevant, since you enjoy having guys play with yours. As far as whether your enjoyment of guys is related to a submissive fantasy or an attraction to men, I'd bet that, as with all things sexual, it's probably a little of both. If it was purely a submissive fantasy and you were all the way on the straight end of the spectrum, play with guys wouldn't be likely to factor in. As I've said before, sexual orientation is not about any specific act, but about who you enjoy doing it with. Since your submissive fantasies are tied to playing with other guys, it sounds like your particular brand of bisexuality relates the submission to being with a guy. But don't hurt your brain thinking too much about it. Either way, both of you seem like you're openly exploring your sexuality and just wondering what label fits you instead of trying to fit into a label. So I say carry on and enjoy the ride. What was that? You were just breathing heavy?
I said I'm going to breathe heavy.
Come on, give some Darth Vader to the audience.
You know I'm shy.
Right.
I am.
So obviously we're welcoming Shara to the show.
Hi.
She seems to be feeling particularly frisky, so.
I usually am when I'm sitting next to you.
Well, that's true.
Or laying next to you.
Your nipples are all hard, too.
It's because you're playing with them.
Well, fact remains.
And the fact that I'm sitting next to you.
So, for this episode, we talked about a few things. A couple of them were kind of related to bisexuality. But I want to start out talking about vaginism, especially because when we got this email, one of the first things you said was, well, I'll just let you talk about your very, very minor issue.
You mean when you and I?
When I'm first sticking my dick into you. Because you were saying, don't get all bashful about it now. Gee, what is this, the most fucking embarrassing thing you've ever talked about on this show?
Oh, no, I'm sure it's not. Oh.
And she blushes.
Yes, it's, I think it's because I'm too small. You're a perfect size, and I say that to you all the time, but because I'm so small.
You don't have to stroke my ego, baby. I know the measurements.
I know you do.
I know I'm above average.
But it's painful for me, and so there's a lot of ways of helping that, of course.
Well, the interesting thing is, you said when you first read this that it sounded kind of familiar because just to give a little bit of background, when I first stick my dick in Shara, she feels pain for, or probably not even a minute. Yeah, just a moment. It's just when I'm first pushing in there. And I mean, I'm not swinging around, Mike Tyson's arm or something. I mean, I'm not small, but I'm not by any means a monster. So I'm sure you've had that pussy pounded by things that are bigger than what I'm swinging around. And there she goes again.
I'm just going to say I have to think about it. No,
but in your case, it's obviously after the first couple of strokes, you're doing just fine. But
yes, I am.
But talk a little bit more about that for a second. I mean, is that something that you have always experienced?
No.
I don't remember that happening with us when we first got together.
No, and you're right. It didn't. So a couple things is the fact that for some people, I think that things change in life depending on your circumstances, or if you're stressed out, they even say, in the material that I've read, that even when you're stressed out, and of course, with our business, there's been the stressful days of how we're going to get everything done.
So you really feel it's just stress making your pussy clamp up?
I think mine is more stress related than anything. Yes, I do.
And then as soon as I get all the way in there, the stress is gone.
It's gone, yeah.
Okay. So everything's fine from that point.
Yes.
So for the record, I mean, all I have to do is make sure she's nice and wet, which really is not much of a problem. And, just kind of push in nice and slow the first time. And
then there are women that, size for them is a big issue. For some people, menopause creates dryness, and I understand that a lot of lube can help that situation.
Well, a lot of lube can help a lot of things.
Yes, it can. And so is the fact if she, if the female is, getting licked a lot, I probably would just go into menopause just to be licked a lot, personally. But I understand that there's many different things that you can do to get rid of that situation or to help ease the pain. But for me, I think it is the stress. I I'm so tense trying to figure out how we're going to get everything done. And then by the time we have a chance to relax, it's like, we want to get right to the sex part of it all. And I need time to decompress, and I don't really want to take the time to decompress. So for me, it's,
So instead of decompressing slowly, you just let me pop the balloon.
I just figure, okay, just, hang on to the sofa or the bed and chew on it for a minute, and it'll all go away.
As I posted on Facebook a couple of weeks ago.
I saw that.
Saliva stain on the arm of the couch. Looked like the thing had been mauled by an animal or something.
Well, it had.
On to Lady M's, the focus of her question, how to talk about a sexual issue with guys that she's just started seeing. So do you have any suggestions or any thoughts over and above what I said?
A couple of things is, number one, and you've said this in other relationships, is you don't necessarily have to go into something like that right away unless you know that you're going down that path with that person.
Right. Well, yeah. I mean, I was talking about once she decides that she wants to get at least into bed with a guy.
Right. And I think that you covered it very well. And if the man is really a good-hearted person and really is into the woman, then he's going to help her get through that. He's going to help find the answers along with her. And, Google's one of my favorites, obviously, is because you can Google anything today and get the answers to some of the questions that people have, the concerns that they have. It's just a question of watching, is it a website or whatever, and making sure it's something that you should be going to as opposed to.
Right. Well, and one of the things I was trying to say earlier is the right kind of guy will actually see it as, a positive challenge.
And we know how men like that, a challenge.
We do. We like that. If it's framed in a way that helps us understand it and puts it in a positive light. I really think that if she can rework the way she's thinking about this condition, she can probably have a whole lot of success finding people who are willing to help her work through it.
Many that are willing to help.
Looks like you're ready to offer.
I do what I have to do to help those females out there.
Yeah, it's all part of the job, eh?
You could say that.
So for Smooch, who is looking to open up her marriage and has a husband who sees all non-monogamy basically as evil, do you agree with what I suggested, and would you like to add anything?
I do agree with what you suggested. And I do think that if she lets him go, like you had mentioned, to the strip club with his friends and things like that, it will start laying some groundwork. And the other thing is to give him control of who, what, and when. I mean, she can agree with the person that they might bring in.
Well, obviously she would have to have veto power.
Well, in the one that we got together with, I really didn't have, but it turned out to be fine.
Well,
it worked out well.
But that was kind of a unique situation that was offered to us and was a whole lot of fun. But yeah. That's not the average person's Friday night.
Correct.
It's not even the average swinger's Friday night.
Correct. But, however, I would say that, as long as you have the veto power, letting him be in control of it might make him feel more comfortable, because for him it's the threat and of being cheated on. So if he knows that he has control of, the phone number and, who it's going to be and all that, he may not feel threatened if he has control. And I wouldn't bring it to the house because of the fact that he'd be worried about, okay, is this person going to show up at our home, whether it's female or male.
Kids, and your house is where your real life is. So
right, but some people do bring people back to their home, and I'm just saying, as a list of the rules that they might set for themselves, is not to bring it back to their house. One, you do have children, but the other point of it being is that that person does not know where you live and is not going to show up at your door. So he will not be worried if he's off working somewhere that you're going to bring that person back, whether it's female or male, because there's the bisexual in a lot of us. So
right. Well, and I also want to restate, she very explicitly wants to get to a place where she can just be off doing her own thing. And I want to clarify that we do understand that, but what we're talking about is what we see as how to start the road.
Baby steps.
The baby steps and how to get started on the road of getting to that place. Because from where she's at now, frankly, there's a lot of road there.
There is.
And all she can really do is try to be encouraging and present some positive options one at a time and see which ones he takes. And she may or may not ever get all the way to where she wants to be, but she can probably get closer to it than she's at right now.
Right. And sometimes people think that it's what they want, and then when they start experiencing it, they might find out that it's different, or she might find out that he opens up a lot more as you go down the road. So the baby steps, I think, are real important because you could totally destroy your family that you have if you're not careful, because of the bad baggage that he's had. But I will say this, people can work through that baggage. And it just takes time and patience. And if you really love him, then I think it's worth taking that time to go through all of that, to take the baby steps, because in the end, you might find out that it's even stronger and better. And, you know, he might be agreeable and say, okay, there's going to be a time frame and it's going to be during this time and so forth, so that he knows, okay, she's off doing this from, 5 to 9 on Friday night. And I'm allowed to also go do it from 5 to 9 on Friday night. And then when we come back, we can talk about it or whatever. And I think that that's important too, is some people can't talk about it and other ones can. Sometimes it's difficult. Some people do not want to know. We have a couple that she doesn't want to know what transpired during during his evening out. She doesn't play, but he does, and she doesn't want to know any of it. So, that's important to know all of that going in. But start with the baby steps. I think you had the right idea. Go to the strip clubs first with his friends, let him go, and keep on bringing it back a little bit more at a time.
Right, and we don't know him, so obviously, we can't read his mind. His wife knows him very, very well. But one of the big things is getting him to see an upside to the situation for himself and for his marriage.
Mm-hmm.
Because where he's at right now, and very reasonably where he's at right now with his experiences, it just sounds like he doesn't visualize an upside. And, being out at the strip club with your buddies and thinking to yourself, if I really wanted to go after one of these girls, I could. Notwithstanding whether he might get one of them, but, it's in the male mind, having the power to make that decision, even if you never make it, is right. Something significant for a man's confidence.
Right. And she might find out that their sexual relationship between them becomes even better because he'll have that option, and she gives him the power. So sometimes just giving them the power to say yes or no is a lot. So I'd start with the strip club, the two of them going, and then go from there.
All right, so moving on to Pepper and Open-Minded Brown Guy. They had similar and related questions about bicuriosity and bisexuality. The first thing I want to talk about with you is Pepper's issues finding lesbian porn that turns her on. She's in a position where she feels like she's attracted to women and would like even a romantic relationship with a woman, but she can't get herself off to lesbian porn, and so she's conflicted. Now, you may not be the right person to ask about this because, as most of the audience knows, you have no use for porn that's longer than 2 minutes.
Okay, I come easily. That's like, I can't help it. I come easily. But I want to tell her, I too do not really come to lesbian porn. I like the male-female porn or gangbangs or threesomes, but I typically do not enjoy the female-female porn.
Now, do you ever watch femdom porn? Because I know you've played with female doms in the past.
Yes, I have.
So is that, does girl-on-girl BDSM porn get you off?
Not so much.
Okay.
I mean, I have watched it, and some of it does excite me, but to be honest, again, when it comes to BDSM porn, I'm more attracted to the male dominant or a female dominant, but she's dominating maybe two people. But typically, no, it's not that way for me either. I mean, I like the male and the female going on, and I like two men on a female or a gangbang or.
All right, well, Shara's getting a homework assignment then.
Oh, goody.
You need, sometime in the next 2 weeks, you need to see if you can find some lesbian porn that gets you off.
Okay.
So
I
we
will
can
do
see
that.
if you can recommend it for some of our bi-curious or bisexual female listeners.
I will do that if it takes me 7 days, day and night.
All day, every day. I'm in
I
it
will-
for the long haul. I'll do it.
I will do it.
Do you think that has any impact on bi-curiosity? I mean, do you think, as I did, that it's impossible to draw a conclusion like that, or do you think it speaks to her desires towards women?
I think that if she is feeling a desire for women, not getting off on lesbian porn does not mean you do not have that desire. And I know that because of myself. So it doesn't mean anything. It just means that it's not something for her. The lesbian porn may not be something for her. However, during my search, I will then share the ones that got me off and see if it would help her.
Maybe we need to give you like a 3 dildos, 4 dildos rating system or something.
Perhaps. Might have to.
See if I can find a plugin for WordPress on the website.
I just think that we'll just have to.
I can. There are a lot of WordPress plugins out.
And perhaps we're just going to have to, get me some of those dildos from our advertising people.
Yeah, we do need to get some test products from Adam and Eve.
I think Adam and Eve would be a good place for me to start with some new dildos.
Anywhere you think is a good place for you to get some new dildos.
But I think Adam and Eve have a very good selection. They have a great selection.
All right, now on to what Open-Minded Brown Guy was asking about. I think the fact that he enjoys playing with guys is a pretty clear indicator. It's not curiosity. He's actually done the play and enjoyed it and sounds like would do it again. Mm-hmm. So I think that's a pretty solid indicator of a healthy bisexuality.
Yes, I agree.
Is there anything you'd like to add to what I said earlier?
I just think that if he really enjoys the play, to not let it be something that bothers him, because a lot of men have an issue with bisexuality. They feel that it's okay for a female, but not okay for a male. Now, there's the group of men out there that are totally okay with it, but there are a lot of men out there that feel like...
Well, yeah, it's like a bullshit anti-macho sexual dark age brainwashing thing that happens to modern guys as they're growing up.
Ending the sexual dark age, gone. It's got to be gone. You got to remove it from your own head in order to really enjoy the experience, because more than anything else, when you're having sex, you want to enjoy it. So if you're worried about it, whether you are or you aren't, if you're enjoying that moment, enjoy it. And don't let the sexual dark age be there, and just have fun.
Yeah, and I thought it was actually, because these comments came in like within 24 hours of each other, so it was kind of natural to talk about them together on the show. But I always think it's cool to hear from listeners who they may be a little bit confused about bi-curiosity or bisexuality, but they don't sound conflicted at all. They're just like, hey, I can't quite figure this out. I mean, this is what I like and this is what I think I want to do. But it's just always cool to have people who obviously have a healthy attitude towards their sexuality. They're trying to figure it out just like the rest of us are, but doesn't seem to be any stress or shame or conflict there. So
Exactly, and that's important. It really is.
So before we move on, we still have 2 items that are especially open for listener feedback, and we always love hearing from our listeners. And sometimes it does take a while. We do try to respond to everything that's sent in, and we do our damnedest, but we are mortals.
We are?
And sometimes it takes us a while, and we do try to get to all of them. The 2 items that are especially open are bitching about the opposite sex. We've gotten some hilarious posts on the website, mostly from the girls. The girls seem more willing to go to the laundry list format.
You had a couple from the guys.
Well, yeah, we did, but I'm not criticizing. I find it entertaining because a couple of the girls went right to a laundry list format, and they were pretty funny, and you can definitely see the truth in all of them. But
so I was thinking something about that.
What?
I was thinking that between now and our next episode, see how many we can get in, and whoever gets the most, men or female, put in the most. The top one, then we'll pick like 5 or 6 of our favorite ones and put them out there for everybody else to kind of like vote on, and then that person gets a pornoglyph shirt.
Okay, you want to do a shirt contest?
Yeah, I do.
Okay. So is born Shara's pornoglyph t-shirt sweepstakes.
Okay.
So from now until, let's see, it's September 30th. So let's say until Halloween.
Okay.
We are especially looking for feedback on the homework assignment on the website about bitching about the opposite sex. So, when we get to Halloween, we'll see how much total feedback we got from the girls and how much total feedback we got from the guys. Whichever one gets more, you want to put what we consider to be the top 5 of them up on the website for voting, and the winner of that will get a free t-shirt.
Right. So it'll either be the men that win or the women that win, and out of that we'll pick the top.
Well, that's especially appropriate because like we're kind of going into a battle of the sexes type story arc or topic arc for what we're going to be doing. So we're actually defining Team Willie and Team Tata before we even get to the battle of the sexes. I love it.
Yeah. I thought it'd be fun to do. So
yeah, that should be fun. All right, so on the website I will do a post talking about the Shara's Pornoglyph T-shirt sweepstakes.
Okay,
which I might come up with a snappier name for. But
I kind of like the Willie and the Tatas.
Well, yeah, Team Willie and Team Tata, I think we can keep.
Yeah.
But yeah, we'll do some guys versus the girls complaining about each other. And everybody, please, it's
fun.
intended to be fun. If
yes.
you read most of the stuff that's already been posted there, it's very lighthearted and fun. So, we do want this to be a fun, entertaining thing.
And if you have more than one, feel free to enter more than one.
Oh, absolutely.
So.
Yeah, and the girls who have already posted, I think Psyche had a pretty good list, and one of the other girls posted. We will count each item of your laundry list as a separate entry.
Yes. But this should be fun.
I hope it will. So guys, get out your laundry lists of complaints, try to keep them entertaining, and get them posted on the website.
And for the women, I know how creative we can be, so.
And the prize will be, I really have been kind of neglecting the store, but yes. I can create a custom t-shirt in whatever size, color, and whatever currently existing pornoglyph that the winner would like.
Oh, that's great. All right.
So that's a great idea. Thanks for creating more work for me.
Oh, I have one for the month of December coming up, too. Actually, maybe we should do one for Thanksgiving as well to be thankful. But anyway, I have.
I think if we can keep entertaining and relevant topics for them, I think contests would be kind of fun. So
I have a couple.
Now I'm going to have to get the whole, we're like promoting the store for the t-shirts now though. So now I'm going to have to get the whole damn thing. Why you smile at me like that? You
see my manipulation there?
You got me. You've been trying to get me to finish that web store for a long time.
I have.
You circled around behind me and flanked me.
It was very creative of me at this very moment. I just thought of it and thought.
That was well done, baby.
Thank you.
Well done.
You've taught me well. I've always been creative.
Perhaps too well.
All right, so.
Now you're using my mojo against me.
And just think, those that win, they get to think of a pornoglyph for you to do. Of a porno. Oops. That was a slip there.
Yeah, it's been a lot of years. So anyway, it's about time to wrap it up. So we got a handful of birthdays. We've got Matt S. and Rachel M. on September 20th. Happy birthday. Bob and Helen and baby Lynn.
October 1st. And Chelsea on October 2nd, which will be Sunday.
Yep. Happy birthday to everybody.
May have a good spanking weekend.
Hope you either will have or did have a fun-filled evening of some form of filth and debauchery, because everybody deserves a little debauchery on their birthday.
I believe you are correct.
Well, they especially deserve a little on their birthday. They deserve it every day.
Either get tied up or tie someone up.
All right. So anything else to say before we sign off, baby?
Just thank you for listening as always. We really appreciate it.
And I just remembered as Shara was walking away that she distracted me with her excellent sweepstakes idea. The other thing that we are actively looking for feedback on or questions on is anything specifically relating to dominance and submission. Some of those we'll try to answer directly on some upcoming listener mail shows as we talk about a few kinky topics in a row here. And we'll also let them guide what we talk about on the upcoming Sexual Dominance Part 2 episode and the sexual submission that we're going to be talking about after that. Thanks so much for joining us, and as always, please feel free to join in the conversation by posting anonymously on sexualdarkage.com, emailing jvaltheros@gmail.com or jvshara@gmail.com, or finding us on FetLife, Twitter, Facebook, etc., all of which have links on the website at sexualdarkage.com. And we always appreciate positive reviews and ratings on iTunes. They do a tremendous amount to help get the show in front of more listeners. Next episode will be Sexual Dominance Part 2, the care, feeding, and use of a sexual submissive. Until then, this be me, J.V. Altheros, reminding you that sex is one of the greatest things in life, and there is always room for better.